In a small town on the edge of the city, where neon lights rarely reached and broken street lamps whispered stories of forgotten dreams, there lived a boy named Miguel. He was just 16, thin as a reed, with dark brown eyes that seemed older than his years and hands hardened from carrying crates at a local market. He had grown up in poverty. His father had passed away when Miguel was barely 8, and his mother worked tirelessly as a laundress to keep food on the table. Yet, despite their struggles, Miguel carried something rare within him, a quiet fire, a gift that neither hunger nor hardship could take away. His voice. Late at night, when the streets were silent and his mother had finally drifted into exhausted sleep, Miguel would sit on the roof of their crumbling apartment building, a second-hand guitar resting on his knees, and he would sing. Music was his escape, his refuge, and his prayer. His favorite song was Hotel California, not because he fully understood the poetry of its words, but because every time he sang it, he felt as if the walls of his little world fell away and the stars leaned down just to listen. It was a song his father used to hum when times were better, and for Miguel, it was the only thing that made him feel close to the man he had lost. He never imagined that one day this very song would change his life forever. One Saturday morning, as Miguel was unloading sacks at the market, he overheard a group of teenagers talking excitedly about a televised singing competition that was holding auditions nearby. The grand prize was enough money to change his mother's life forever, enough to give her the rest she so desperately needed. Something stirred in Miguel, fear, yes, but also a dream he had buried long ago. He went home that evening, told his mother, and she shook her head in disbelief. "Miguel, you don't even have proper clothes. These competitions, they're for people with money, with connections." But Miguel smiled softly, holding her tired hands. "Maybe they're for people with hope, too, Mama." The next morning, with nothing but his guitar, a plain shirt, and a heart pounding like a drum, he made his way to the audition hall. The waiting room was filled with confident singers, dressed in stylish clothes, their voices echoing with rehearsed runs and polished notes. Miguel felt small, out of place, almost invisible. But when his name was finally called, he walked onto the stage, facing 3 judges seated beneath blinding spotlights and an audience watching with expectation and curiosity. The judges asked what he would sing, and Miguel quietly said, "Hotel California." They raised their eyebrows, an ambitious choice. One judge, a stern-looking man with silver hair, leaned forward and asked, "Why that song?" Miguel hesitated, then spoke with trembling honesty. "Because it reminds me of my father. He used to sing it when life felt heavy, and now when I sing it, I feel like he's still here, listening." There was a hush in the room. Miguel strummed the first chord on his guitar. His hands shook, but as soon as he opened his mouth, a transformation took place. The thin, nervous boy disappeared, replaced by a voice that was raw, soulful, and drenched in emotion. It wasn't perfect, he missed a note or two, but there was something in the way he sang, a trembling strength, a plea, a story, that reached into every heart present. The lyrics flowed from him not just as a song, but as a cry of survival, a hymn of longing, a boy's fragile attempt to heal his pain through melody. By the time he reached the final lines, his eyes glistened with tears, and so did the judges. The audience erupted in thunderous applause. One of the judges, a woman known for her sharp critiques, wiped her eyes and whispered into the microphone, "I've heard thousands of singers, but very few who sing from a place so deep, so real. Young man, you just reminded us why music matters." Another judge, visibly moved, asked him, "Miguel, if you win this competition, what would you do with the prize?" Miguel lowered his gaze for a moment, then answered softly, "I would buy my mother a home where she never has to work again. She has given everything to me, and it's time I give something back to her." His words pierced the hall like lightning, drawing murmurs of admiration. Weeks passed, and Miguel advanced through round after round. Each time, he stood humbly on that stage, never forgetting why he was there. He sang not for fame, not for glory, but for his mother, for his father's memory, and for every boy or girl out there who felt unseen. The audience grew to love him, calling him the Soul Boy, because his voice seemed to pour straight from his soul. Yet with success came pressure. He began receiving messages from strangers telling him he was an inspiration, while others mocked his simple clothes and background. Miguel struggled with doubt, wondering if he truly belonged among the polished performers. But then, on the eve of the final performance, something unexpected happened. As he was rehearsing backstage, he overheard a fellow contestant crying. It was a girl named Sarah, who had always seemed confident. She confessed to a friend that her father had fallen ill, and if she didn't win, she couldn't afford his treatment. Miguel froze. For a moment, he was torn. He wanted desperately to win for his mother, but he also understood the pain of watching a parent suffer. That night, as he walked home beneath the dim streetlights, Miguel thought about sacrifice, about love, and about the strange ways life tests the human heart. The final night arrived. Millions tuned in across the country. Miguel's mother sat in the front row, her hands trembling, her eyes filled with pride and worry. When Miguel walked on stage, he looked out into the crowd and then back at the judges. "Tonight," he said softly, "I sing for every parent who has ever sacrificed for their child, and every child who dreams of giving something back." He closed his eyes and began once more with the haunting chords of Hotel California. But this time, his voice was different. It carried not only his own pain and hope, but also the empathy he felt for Sarah and for countless others whose battles were unseen. Every note rose and fell like a prayer, weaving together sorrow and hope into something transcendent. The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. By the time he finished, the judges were openly crying. The silver-haired judge stood up, his voice breaking. "Miguel, you've reminded us tonight that music is not about perfection, it's about connection. And you have touched the hearts of millions." The audience roared, some even chanting his name. When the time came to announce the winner, tension filled the air. The host opened the envelope, and after a dramatic pause, declared, "The winner is Miguel." The hall erupted with applause. Miguel's mother wept, rushing onto the stage to embrace him. Cameras flashed, the judges smiled through their tears, and the world seemed to open before him. But then, Miguel did something no one expected. He took the microphone, his voice still trembling. "I am so grateful," he said, "but I cannot accept this prize alone. I've come to know someone here who also sings from a place of love and pain. Sarah, please, join me." The stunned audience watched as he called Sarah onto the stage. Miguel continued, "She needs this just as much as I do. And if this prize is meant to change a life, then it should change too." There was a gasp in the crowd, followed by silence so deep it felt sacred. Sarah stood frozen, tears streaming down her face, unable to believe what was happening. One of the judges spoke up, his voice trembling, This is the greatest performance of all. Not the song, but the heart behind it." The producers huddled quickly, and after a tense moment, they announced something unprecedented: the prize would be shared between Miguel and Sarah. The hall exploded with cheers, the judges embraced both contestants, and the moment was replayed across the nation for weeks to come. Miguel had not only won the competition, he had won people's hearts with his selflessness, proving that true greatness is not measured by what you keep, but by what you give. In the weeks that followed, donations poured in from strangers inspired by his story. Miguel's mother finally moved into a modest but beautiful home, where she could rest without worry. Sarah's father received the treatment he needed. And Miguel, though still the same humble boy with a second-hand guitar, had become a symbol of hope, reminding millions that even in a world obsessed with fame and fortune, kindness and compassion still had the power to change everything. Years later, Miguel would look back on that night, remembering not just the applause or the lights, but the tears of the judges, the embrace of his mother, and the simple truth that guided him: when you sing with love, when you live with love, the world listens.